Nate Silver was once the golden boy of political forecasting, a statistician who built his career by accurately predicting elections and giving data-driven analysis the prominence it deserved in public discourse. He rose to fame through his website 538, where he blended polling data with complex statistical models to make sense of political and social trends. In 2012, Silver was the face of statistical triumph, predicting every state correctly in the US presidential election and solidifying his role as a voice of reason amidst the chaotic noise of punditry. But that was then. What we see now is a man who has not just miscalculated politically, but who seems to be crumbling in full view of the public. It's as though the weight of his early success and the mounting pressure to maintain relevance has pushed him into territory that defies the very principles that made him stand out. Gone is the measured statistician who used to speak calmly about probabilities and margins of error. In his place, we find a figure who now seems more interested in picking fights on social media and courting controversy than in delivering sober analysis. Silver's trajectory over the last few years is a cautionary tale of what happens when brilliance begins to curdle. What began as the occasional statistical miss, his failure to accurately predict the 2016 election, for example, has spiraled into an over-reliance on shaky polling sources, including fringe and right-leaning data that would have been beneath his standards in earlier years. But Silver, instead of tightening his methods and addressing the shortcomings, has doubled down, insisting on incorporating every bit of questionable data, as though quantity could make up for the increasing shakiness of his models. The rigor is gone, and what's left is a man trying to outpace the fallibility that's overtaken his once unassailable image. Nowhere is this intellectual decline more visible than in his behavior. Where once Silver let the numbers speak for themselves, he's now resorted to increasingly erratic and combative actions. His bizarre public spat with actress Bette Midler, a figure entirely irrelevant to his field, shows the extent of his unravelling. This is a man who once proudly stood outside the realm of emotional, partisan squabbles, and yet now he throws barbs at an aging actress as if that somehow validates his predictions or restores his lost credibility. It's not just petty, it's pathetic. What we're witnessing is the classic downfall of someone who can't cope with his own diminishing relevance. And this descent isn't just personal, it's professional. Silver has come to rely on figures like Peter Thiel, the controversial billionaire whose political leanings skew hard right, and who champions a worldview that aligns with many Trumpian tendencies. Silver's willingness to align himself with Thiel-backed ventures further erodes the credibility he once had as a data-driven, impartial voice. He's no longer the dispassionate analyst cutting through political noise. He's part of the noise now, flailing, reactionary, and unmoored from the very principles that made him notable in the first place. So why has Silver, who once stood as the epitome of intellectual rigor, descended into this state of public decline? The answer lies not just in his statistical failures, but in how those failures have gnawed away at his identity. Silver is no longer the young maverick revolutionizing political forecasting. He's a man entering middle age, increasingly tied to a world that thrives on controversy, and whose grip on his own legacy is slipping. The more he tries to claw back his relevance through dodgy data, public spats, or aligning with figures like Thiel, the more it becomes clear that he is adrift, having lost the core principles that once anchored his work. Should Trump lose in the upcoming election, one can only imagine the internal reckoning Silver might face. His models, which have become more favorable to Trump in the lead-up, have placed significant weight on the outcome. If those models prove incorrect, if Trump does lose, Silver will not just be wrong, he will be profoundly exposed. His decline won't just be a matter of a missed prediction, but the culmination of years of deteriorating judgment, misplaced allegiances, and emotional acting out. The man who once stood as the voice of reason in political discourse may well face a break from the very identity that's defined him for over a decade. Nate Silver has always prided himself on seeing beyond the immediate, on understanding the long game, but as of now he seems incapable of applying that wisdom to his own trajectory. What we are seeing is a man caught in a downward spiral, unable to regain his footing, increasingly desperate to maintain the aura of authority that he once possessed. It's painful to watch, but perhaps inevitable. The sharper the rise, the harder the fall. Silver's story, once a testament to the power of data and objectivity, has become a cautionary tale of ego, error, and intellectual deterioration. And unless something changes, this may be the only forecast he fails to predict.